on Instagram. That's why this is weird as fuck to me. But when you, Chrisean, try to act like motherfuckers speaking on shit that's unsolicited, motherfuckers care because I was right there when this shit blew the fuck up. Are you delusional?
The second the streets started whispering Marsh's name next to Chrisean Rock, the internet didn't blink, it leaned in. Not because there was proof, not because there were receipts, but because the tone felt different. This wasn't regular messy chatter. This sounded like a warning slipping out before someone could stop it. And once that kind of rumor escapes, it doesn't jog, it sprints. What made people nervous wasn't one post or one clip. It was the pattern. Vague messages, side comments, screenshots with just enough context to make your stomach tighten. The kind of stuff that makes timelines pause mid-scroll like, wait, am I supposed to be worried right now? Suddenly everyone was acting like they'd heard something off the record. Streets talking, DMs buzzing. Nobody saying everything, but everybody saying enough. Fans started comparing it to those moments in documentaries where the narrator says, no one knew how bad it was about to get. Others joked to cope, saying this made celebrity beef look like a food fight at summer camp. But the jokes felt nervous. Because when people start saying this won't end well, it's usually not for entertainment. And the real cliffhanger? Chrisean hadn't reacted yet. Silence doesn't calm rumors, it feeds them. And once the internet smells danger mixed with mystery, it doesn't wait for confirmation. This didn't start with a headline or a viral clip. It started the way the most dangerous rumors always do, quietly. A few comments here, a vague post there, somebody saying, I heard something, without ever saying exactly what they heard. And in the world Chrisean Rock exists in, that kind of silence is never empty. It's loaded. Marsh single quotes S name didn't come up loud at first. It slipped into conversations sideways, like an afterthought that kept reappearing. People weren't tagging. They weren't calling anyone out directly. They were hinting. And when the streets start hinting instead of shouting, that's usually when things feel less like cloud chasing and more like caution tape being unrolled. What made this different from the usual internet mess was the tone. This wasn't playful beef. This wasn't two people trading insults for engagement. The language people used sounded like warnings, not jokes. Phrases like watch her back and this won't end well don't trend because they're funny. They trend because they make people uneasy. Chrisean's history made the situation feel even heavier. She's never been a stranger to chaos, confrontation, or public conflict. If anything, controversy follows her like a subscription she forgot to cancel. So when rumors started circling about a possible setup, people didn't dismiss it outright. They leaned in because her past taught them this saga rarely stays small. Marsh, on the other hand, became a shadow figure in the narrative almost overnight. Not loud, not constantly posting, just present enough to be mentioned. And sometimes the most unsettling role in a story is the one that doesn't speak much at all. Silence creates space, and the internet fills that space with imagination. Fans started connecting dots that might not even belong on the same page. Old clips resurfaced. Old comments got reread with new suspicion. Things that once felt random suddenly felt intentional. That's how online investigations work. The conclusion comes first. The evidence gets assembled afterward. The first reactions split instantly. One side said this was all exaggeration. Another internet panic cycle feeding on vibes instead of facts. They argued people were turning rumors into fear because fear spreads faster than truth. The other side didn't buy that for a second. They said when too many people start saying the same thing quietly, it's worth paying attention. Chrisean's silence didn't help. It never does. When someone known for reacting loudly suddenly says nothing, people don't assume calm. They assume concern. Supporters said she was staying offline for peace. Critics said silence meant she was aware something was off. Every hour without a response stretched the tension tighter. Meanwhile, reaction pages jumped in carefully at first. No bold accusations. No definitive claims. Just speculation wrapped in disclaimers. Allegedly. From what I'm hearing, don't quote me, but even with caution, The damage was already moving. Once a rumor reaches that stage, it doesn't need confirmation to grow. The sarcasm kicked in as a defense mechanism. People joked that this felt like the opening scene of a documentary nobody wants to star in. Others said it made reality TV look like children's programming. Humor softened the anxiety, but it didn't erase it. You could feel the unease underneath every joke. What made the story spiral was how personal it felt to fans. Chrisean isn't viewed like a distant celebrity. She's perceived as accessible, exposed, constantly in the mix. So when danger gets hinted at, people don't treat it like gossip. They treat it like a developing situation. And then there were the streets comments. That phrase carries weight for a reason. When people say the streets are talking, they're not talking about verified sources. They're talking about informal networks, whispers, warnings passed along without paperwork. That kind of talk isn't always accurate, but it's rarely random. Some supporters demanded proof immediately, screenshots, names, receipts. They said fear-mongering without evidence was reckless. Others clapped back hard, arguing that waiting for proof is exactly how people ignore warning signs until it's too late. That argument alone fueled the fire. Marsh's lack of direct response became part of the narrative too. Not because silence equals guilt, but because silence allows projection. People read intent into absence. They assumed strategy. They assumed planning. The less he said, the more the story wrote itself. The algorithm loved every second of it. Clips didn't even need visuals to go viral, voiceovers, screenshots of text, threads breaking down what we know so far. Even the lack of information became content. The mystery itself was the product. What really escalated things was the shift from rumor to concern. Comment sections stopped joking and started sounding protective. Fans said they hoped Chrisean was safe. Others urged her to stay offline, stay home, stay alert. When an audience moves from entertainment to warning mode, you know the vibe has changed. Chrisean's past conflicts resurfaced again, but this time they weren't used for laughs. They were framed as context, as patterns, as reasons people felt uneasy. Fair or not, history gets weaponized when fear enters the chat. Some tried to calm things down, reminding everyone that the internet has a habit of turning shadows into monsters. They warned against blowing speculation out of proportion. But calm voices rarely go viral. Alarmed as. By the end of the first wave, the situation had shifted completely. This wasn't about Marsh versus Chrisean anymore. It was about uncertainty, about whether the noise was meaningless or meaningful, about whether people were watching the start of something or just another false alarm. And that's the most dangerous place any story can sit, because once fear enters the narrative, it doesn't need facts to survive. It only needs momentum. And at that point, the internet wasn't asking if something was happening. It was asking how bad it could get. Once the whispers crossed from niche comment sections into full timelines, the story mutated. It stopped being "Did you hear?" and became "Why is everyone saying the same thing?" That's when the internet's danger sense kicked in. Not proof, not facts, pattern recognition. And pattern recognition online is a runaway train with a Wi-Fi signal. Reaction channels tried to sound responsible at first. Heavy on the disclaimers, light on the certainty. Allegedly, from what I'm hearing, don't quote me, but even with caution tape wrapped around every sentence, the implication did the damage. Because when 10 different voices hint at the same concern, people stop asking for receipts and start asking for safety updates. Memes followed. Because humor is how the internet processes anxiety. People joked this felt like the opening scene of a true crime series where everyone ignores the warning signs. Others compared it to a thriller trailer where the narrator says, "What happened next shocked everyone." The jokes landed, but they landed uneasy. You could feel the nervous laughter through the screen. Celebrity-adjacent accounts began posting cryptic messages that didn't name anyone but named the vibe. Protect your peace. Listen when the streets whisper. Not everything needs to be public. Each post acted like lighter fluid. Fans screenshot, circle, speculate. Even silence from unrelated people became evidence of something bigger brewing. public reaction split into two loud camps. One side said this was reckless fear-mongering dressed up as concern. They argued that repeating unverified rumors puts real people at risk and turns speculation into a self-fulfilling storm. The other side pushed back hard, saying warnings don't always come with paperwork and ignoring patterns has consequences. Both sides spoke with conviction. Neither side was slowing down. Marsh's name trended harder the less he said. Not because silence proves anything, but because silence online becomes a blank canvas. People filled it with theories, strategy, motive planning. The absence of response was interpreted 100 different ways, none of them neutral. That's the internet's favorite magic trick, turning nothing into everything. Chrisean's lack of visible reaction amplified the tension even more. When someone known for reacting loudly goes quiet during a storm, people don't assume calm. They assume alertness. Supporters urged her to stay offline and stay safe. Critics claimed the silence meant she knew more than she was saying. Either way, the pressure mounted, she was saying. Either way, the pressure mounted. Old clips resurfaced again, but this time the framing was darker. Not entertainment, context. Past conflicts were stitched together like a montage meant to explain why people were uneasy now. The internet doesn't distinguish between relevance and convenience when it's building a narrative. If it fits the feeling, it gets included. The phrase "the streets are talking" became the fuel. That phrase doesn't promise accuracy, but it promises urgency. It suggests information moving through informal channels faster than official ones ever could. And once that idea takes hold, people stop waiting for confirmation and start acting like the warning itself is the message. Outrage grew, then shifted into something closer to protectiveness. Comment sections filled with messages telling Chrisean to move smart, avoid certain spaces, stay around people she trusts. That shift matters. When audiences stop laughing and start advising, the tone has officially changed. Pop culture comparisons escalated. People said this made celebrity beef look like reality TV filler. Others joked that this was how documentaries begin, with everyone later saying there were signs exaggerated. Absolutely. But exaggeration sticks because it mirrors fear. The algorithm pushed everything harder. Threads explaining what we know so far went viral despite knowing very little. Voiceovers broke down rumors like breaking news. Even posts warning against speculation became part of the cycle. Once a topic becomes sticky, everything touching it spreads. What complicated matters was how personal fans felt about it. Chrisean isn't treated like a distant star. She's perceived as accessible, exposed, always in the mix. That proximity makes concern feel urgent. People weren't watching from afar. They felt involved. Some accounts tried to shut it down, calling the entire situation exaggerated and irresponsible. They warned that online panic can create real-world consequences, but calm rarely wins against concern. Warnings about overreaction got drowned out by warnings about underreacting. Marsh's supporters pushed back, arguing that vague accusations without evidence are damaging and unfair. They pointed out how quickly the internet assigns guilt based on vibes alone. Their defense added another layer to the chaos because now the debate wasn't just about safety. It was about credibility. Chrisean supporters countered that concern doesn't equal accusation. They said watching out for someone isn't the same as convicting someone. That distinction blurred quickly in the heat of comment sections. Online, nuance evaporates under pressure. The situation took on a life of its own. It wasn't about what happened. It was about what might happen. And stories built on possibility are the hardest to stop, because there's no fact strong enough to kill a fear once it's moving. By this point, the narrative had fully shifted from rumor to watchfulness. People weren't asking, "Is this true?" anymore. They were asking, "What if it is?" That question alone can keep a story alive indefinitely. And that's when the stakes rose. Because once a rumor becomes a warning, walking it back feels dangerous. Nobody wants to be the person who said relax if something later goes wrong. So the volume stays up. The caution stays high. The speculation keeps breathing. This was no longer about one alleged setup. It was about trust, fear, and the internet's habit of turning uncertainty into urgency. And when urgency takes over, the next chapter isn't about rumors anymore. When the volume finally dipped, the consequences didn't disappear, they reorganized. The noise moved from timelines to side conversations, from public posts to private decisions. That's how fallout actually works. Not loud, not cinematic, but quietly decisive. The kind that changes routes, reshuffles priorities, and makes people look over their shoulders a little longer than usual. Chrisean's name didn't stop trending, but the tone shifted. It wasn't jokes anymore. It was concern dressed as commentary. Every appearance became a checkpoint. Every move got evaluated like a risk assessment. People weren't asking what she said next. They were asking where she was and who she was with. That's a heavy pivot, and it sticks. The narrative hardened into something uncomfortable. Not an accusation, not a conclusion, a lens. Once a lens forms, it colors everything. Silence looks strategic. Movement looks reactive. Calm looks forced. Fear looks justified. And the internet doesn't swap lenses easily once it decides which one feels right. Marsh's reputation took a hit without a verdict ever being written. Not because anything was proven, but because uncertainty hates a vacuum. The less clarity there was, the more speculation rushed in to fill the space. Some framed him as misunderstood, others as calculated, and many as a question mark that nobody felt safe ignoring. Online, being a question mark is worse than being a headline. Supporters tried to push back, pointing out how dangerous it is to let rumor outrun evidence. They weren't wrong, but they were late. Once fear gets a head start, logic shows up winded. Defenses sounded like denials to people already braced for impact, and nuance got trampled under urgency. The streets talk shifted from "did you hear" to "stay alert." That's a subtle but massive change. It reframed the conversation from curiosity to caution. People started acting like the warning itself was the takeaway, not the truth behind it. When that happens, stories don't need confirmation to keep breathing. Behind the scenes, decisions were made quietly. Schedules changed. Appearances got reconsidered. Circles tightened. This is the part no one posts about, but everyone feels. Risk management doesn't announce itself. It just happens. And when it does, it leaves a trail of absence that speaks louder than any statement. Public perception crystallized into camps that stopped listening to each other. One side insisted this was a textbook example of online hysteria. The other side argued that dismissing warnings is how disasters get ignored. Both sides believed that they were protecting something important. Neither side slowed down. What made this saga linger was the lack of closure. No single post put it to bed. No explanation reset the temperature. No definitive moment arrived to say, "This is over." Loose ends stayed loose, and the internet hates loose ends. It keeps them bookmarked, ready to pull back out when tension resurfaces. Chrisean's past got dragged back into the conversation again, not as entertainment, but as context. Fair or unfair, history becomes a shortcut when fear needs justification. People connected dots that might not belong together because they wanted the picture to make sense. Fear craves patterns, even imperfect ones. The algorithm kept feeding the uncertainty. Content didn't need updates to perform. Recaps of rumors. Reactions to reactions. Think pieces about vibes. Even posts calling for calm became part of the cycle. Once a topic becomes sticky, everything that touches it spreads. The emotional toll showed up in the audience too. Comment sections sounded different. Less hype, more worrying. Less clowning, more caution. When viewers stop laughing and start advising, the relationship between entertainment and reality has officially flipped. What's dangerous about moments like this isn't the rumor itself. It's the precedent. Once the internet learns it can turn whispers into watchfulness without proof, it does it again. And again, and again. Every future conflict gets measured against this one, whether it fits or not. Reputations don't need to be destroyed to be altered. Sometimes they just get heavier, harder to carry, harder to explain. That weight shows up in how people interact, how opportunities get assessed, how benefit of the doubt gets rationed. And that's the quiet truth here. Nobody needed to be guilty for consequences to land. Uncertainty alone was enough. Fear alone was enough. The suggestion of danger rewired the conversation and refused to unplug. This didn't end with clarity. It ended with caution, and caution has a long memory. Because the next time something feels off, the internet won't start from zero. It'll start from here, from the whispers, from the warnings, from the moment everyone decided it was better to be early than sorry. That's the legacy of this chapter. Not answers, not proof, but a permanent question mark hanging in the background, waiting for the next moment to attach itself to. If you made it this far, don't pretend that this was just another rumor-filled scroll. This story hit different, and you felt it. Whispers, warnings, and silence all colliding at once. And when the internet shifts from laughing to watching closely, you already know something changed. Now it's your turn. Drop your take in the comments and don't dance around it. Was this genuine concern that people were right to take seriously? Or did the internet turn smoke into a 5-alarm fire? Are warnings enough, or do receipts matter more? Say it with your chest. This comment section is where the real conversation lives. Smash that like button like it owes you money and try to disappear. Every like tells the algorithm you want the deep dives, the uneasy moments, and the stories that don't come with clean endings. Engagement keeps these breakdowns alive and uncensored. If you're not subscribed yet, fix that immediately. Scandals don't wait for proof, and neither do we. While others tiptoe, we unpack the tension, read between the lines, and expose what everyone's whispering about but won't say out loud. Turn on notifications too. That bell isn't decoration, it's awareness. Because when the next chapter drops, and it always does, you'll want to hear it first, not through screenshots and recycled takes. Remember this, the internet never forgets warnings, silence, or patterns. Once a story reaches this level, it doesn't disappear, it waits. This is Celeb Ruckus. Here, it waits. This is Celeb Ruckus.